So, after a few really strange years, tourism is absolutely roaring back. But what if getting back to normal isn't actually the goal? What if we could see the entire tourism system? I'm talking all the hidden connections, all the secret pathways, and use that map to build something way stronger than what we had before. Well, that's exactly what a group of researchers decided to do. You see it, right? The airports are packed, hotels are booked up, and it's so easy to just assume, okay, we're back to the way things were. But is that true? Underneath it all, has the actual structure of tourism changed? That's the big question these researchers tackled. And what they found reveals a system that's both fascinating and incredibly fragile. To figure this out, they did something pretty radical. They took hundreds and hundreds of tour packages in Thailand and mapped them out. Every single destination became a dot or a node, and every travel route between them became a line. And what you're looking at here, it's the result. It's like the first ever X-ray of an entire country's tourism network. Okay, so you've got this incredible map. What's the very first thing you do? Well, you check its vitals, right? You got to diagnose the overall health of the system. And the researchers used a few key metrics to do just that. The first vital sign is something called network density. Here's a simple way to think about it. Imagine if every single tourist spot in Thailand had a direct route to every other spot. A perfect, completely interconnected web. That would be a density of 1. So, the big question is, how close to 1 is the real-world network? The answer? It's not even close. The density they found was just 0.00379. I mean, that number is so incredibly low, it's practically zero. It tells us that out of all the possible connections that could exist, almost none of them actually do. So here's the bottom line, the first major takeaway. This system is not some robust, resilient web. It's actually a really sparse collection of pathways with huge, gaping holes between destinations. And that was the first big shock from the study. And the diagnosis just gets more detailed from there. The average path length is super high. It takes on average more than 11 hops to get from one random spot to another. Think about that. And the clustering coefficient is really low. That means that even places that are neighbors, right next to each other on a map, often aren't connected in the tour packages. So the network isn't just sparse, it's also pretty inefficient. But, a network isn't just about its overall health, it's also about the individual players. Just like in your social media feed, some destinations are way, way more important than others. They're the ones holding the whole thing together. So who are these superstars? The first way we can measure importance is with something called degree centrality. It's actually really simple. It's just the number of direct connections a place has. You can basically think of it as popularity. It's the major hub that everybody wants to connect to. And this table tells the story perfectly. Right at the top, with a whopping 16 direct connections, you've got Wat Rangkun, the famous White Temple, and right behind it are other massive destinations, like Khao Lak and Phuket Old Town. These are the absolute anchors of the entire network. Now, this chart is where it gets really interesting. It shows how those connections are spread out. And it's not even at all. This is what's known as a scale-free network. You see that huge spike on the left? And then that long, long tail stretching out to the right? That tells us that most destinations have just a couple of connections, while a tiny elite group has a massive number. And when you look at the numbers, they're pretty stark. Get this, over a quarter of all the destinations in the system are just dangling by a single thread, just one connection. And a crazy 87.5% have 5 connections or fewer. This kind of structure makes the whole network really, really fragile. If one of those big hubs goes down, it could just isolate huge chunks of the system. But this is where the story takes a fascinating turn. See, being popular isn't the only way to be important in a network. Some destinations play a totally different, much more subtle role. They're kind of the unsung heroes, the crucial bridges of the system. And we measure this role with betweenness centrality. A place gets a high score here if it acts like a critical highway intersection that tons of traffic has to pass through to get from point A to point B. It's not about how many roads connect to you, it's about how many journeys depend on you. So this map here, it shows you exactly where those bridges are. The biggest blue dots, they aren't always the most popular spots, but they are the most critical connectors. If you were to remove one of them, tourists would have to take way, way longer routes. It would basically break the efficiency of the whole network. So, you have to wonder, right? Are the super popular places also the most important bridges?
I mean, you'd think so. But the data shows us something completely unexpected thanks to our third and final way of measuring importance. This one's called closeness centrality, and what it measures is how easy it is for one destination to reach every other destination in the whole network. A high score means you're in a perfect strategic position to get anywhere else fast. It's all about your overall reach, not just your direct popularity. And here it is. This is probably the most counterintuitive, surprising find in the whole study. The researchers found 22 destinations with a perfect closeness score of 1.0. That means structurally, they're in the best possible position. But then look at their other scores. Most of them have only one connection, a degree of 1, and they have a betweenness score of 0, meaning they aren't bridges at all. It's wild. So what does this all mean? The big takeaway is this. Popularity and strategic importance are two completely different things. You have these hidden gems like Samasisen Island or Wangnam Keo that are just perfectly positioned in the network but are totally underutilized. They're these incredible strategic assets just waiting to be tapped into. So what do you do with all this knowledge? Well, this isn't just some abstract academic project. This X-ray of the tourism network gives us a crystal clear blueprint for how we can build a much stronger, much more resilient tourism industry. And here's how that blueprint works. Step 1, start designing tours that specifically connect those isolated spots. Step 2, strengthen the local clusters. Build routes between nearby rural places to tackle that low clustering score we saw earlier. Step 3, use the superstar hubs, the Wat Rong Kuns of the world, as gateways to promote their less famous neighbors. And finally, step 4, the government can use this very mop to invest intelligently in roads and transport to those remote but super strategic locations. And the researchers themselves said it best. This isn't really a problem. It's a huge opportunity. The network's weaknesses, all those lonely, unconnected destinations, are the exact places where new, creative, and sustainable tour packages can be built. And that would spread the economic benefits of tourism so much more widely. You know, when you step back, what this study really shows is the incredible power of looking at the world as a network. It takes this messy, complex system and turns it into a clear map that shows you its weak spots, its superstars, and its hidden potential. And that leaves us with one last big question. If we can do this for tourism, what about our supply chains, our energy grids, or even our social systems? What other invisible structures could we start mapping to build a smarter, more resilient world for all of us?